My name is Ruth. I'm 69 years old, and yesterday I went to the funeral of the man I spent 52 years of my life with. There were no tears, no screams, no hands clinging to the casket or emotional speeches. There was only a silence so heavy, so deep, it felt like it had a life of its own. And inside me, I nearly drowned in that silence. I was forced to marry at 17 to a man who was 45. Eugene didn't propose to me, he bought me. My father, Henry, had a debt he couldn't pay and saw me as the solution. My mother, Doris, just lowered her eyes. That's how it was back then. You learned to bow your head early. I still remember the smell of the dress they put on me, mildew and old perfume. For decades, people said I was a lucky woman, that Eugene gave me a home, food, children, and maybe that's why so many were confused when they didn't see me cry at the funeral. But no one knows how many nights I cried when no one was watching, how many times I went to bed wishing life would just go by or end, because inside that marriage, I slowly disappeared. If you care about real, painful stories of women who were silenced for decades, then like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every week, you'll hear stories that could belong to your mother, your aunt, your neighbor, or even to you. Because we, older women, still have so much to say, even after a lifetime of not being heard. What you're about to hear isn't about an ordinary marriage. It's about submission disguised as stability, about prisons without bars that still keep you chained on the inside. It's about how a girl became a woman without ever being young, and how that woman, now a widow, is trying, for the first time, to understand who she is without a man around. Now that Eugene is gone, I'm breathing outside the shadow. I still don't know what to do with this freedom. It scares me, makes me feel small, clumsy. But it's sweet too. The only thing I know is this. After everything I've lived, after everything I've kept quiet, I don't want to give it back. That night, after the funeral, the house felt fuller than ever, with echoes, with memories, with old noises. I sat in the kitchen like I did every day, and out of habit, I made 2 cups of coffee. I only realized how absurd that was when I brought the tray to the table and saw the other chair was empty. For the first time in decades, Eugene wasn't there, and I didn't feel longing. I felt relief, a warm, uncomfortable relief that burned more than it comforted. I touched the rim of his cup like someone checking if something is still alive. But it was cold, just like him, just like everything we were together. No one asked me how I was doing. They only talked about him. He was a good man. He raised his kids with a firm hand. He left everything in order. I listened in silence, but inside, my mind was screaming. What about me? Is anyone going to remember me in this story? Or was I just the shadow who cleaned, cooked, and smiled when it was convenient? I went to bed alone. The bed felt bigger, but I didn't know how to take up all that space. I lay right in the middle, arms open, legs stretched out. It felt strange, like claiming that space was a sin. Even with him dead, I still felt forbidden from belonging to the whole mattress. When I woke up, there was no snoring, no grumbling, no commands, just silence, and a sun pouring through the window with a kind of freedom that frightened me. I remembered my wedding, 17 years old, tight braid, cold hands, a faded lace dress. My father, Henry, walked me to the door and said this would be the start of a good life. My mother, Doris, just looked at me like she was silently apologizing, but she said nothing, like always. Eugene waited in the car, dark suit, bored face. I got in, and I went, like someone being taken somewhere without knowing the name of the destination. That night, no one asked me if I was scared, if I really wanted that. if I even knew the man I was going to sleep with. And I didn't. Eugene touched me like he was taking ownership, like signing a receipt. I turned to the side and cried without a sound. It was just the first of many nights when my body would be there, but my soul hidden under the pillow. Now, 52 years later, I'm here, sitting in the same chair, alone, free, but also empty, because I don't know what to do with freedom after so long in captivity. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like. All I know is I never want to be what I was again. Not ever. I remember exactly the moment my life was decided without me. It was a stifling afternoon. I was sweeping the yard when Henry called me inside. He wasn't wearing socks. His shirt was unbuttoned. He was sweating, and a dead cigarette hung from his lips. "You're going to marry Mr. Eugene," he said, like he was talking about the harvest. "He's a good man. He's going to help us." Then he went back to reading the newspaper, as if that ended the matter. I stood there frozen. My hands were shaking. I tried to understand. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Doris appeared behind him, already holding a box with my cousin's wedding dress. Without a word, she started adjusting the hem. And that's when I knew. No one was going to hear me. No one was going to save me. That wasn't a proposal. It was a command disguised as sacrifice. And I was the offering on the altar of my father's debt. The next day, Eugene came to the house. He didn't bring flowers, didn't say good morning. He shook my father's hand like closing a business deal, looked at me like he was inspecting a piece of furniture. We got in the car. There was no ceremony, just paperwork. I signed my name with stiff fingers. Ruth Brown, a married woman, at 17, and a stranger to herself. I felt like I had left my skin at home. He took me to a house out in the country. The bedroom was cold. The walls smelled of damp wood. Eugene undressed in a rush. I stared at the floor. I couldn't breathe. When he laid beside me, I closed my eyes and begged for it to be over. It didn't hurt physically, but something in me died, and no one noticed, not even me, because I didn't know I was alive to begin with. I woke up in the middle of the night in pain, felt blood running down my legs. I didn't say a word, didn't ask for help. I curled up. In the morning, he called me fragile, said he needed a strong woman. I wanted to say I was trying, but I stayed quiet, because right then I learned that the less I spoke, the easier I was to endure. No one ever knew about that first night. I kept it locked inside me like a drawer that never opens, and every time Eugene touched me, I went back there, hid within myself, and thought, maybe someday this will all be over, but it took 52 years to end, and I don't know if there's anything left of me to begin again. The next morning, routine began. Coffee at 7, table set, shoes polished, clothes ironed. Eugene liked silence and obedience. I learned that fast. Every word I said was measured, every step watched. He didn't yell, but the way he shut the door was already a warning, and I read every noise like someone reading a death sentence. When people came over, he smiled, said I was a lucky girl, that I had everything I needed, and I smiled too. Smiled with my mouth, but never with my eyes. One neighbor asked me if I was happy. "I am," I answered, so automatically I didn't even recognize my own voice. She looked at me with pity, and that hurt more than if she had slapped me. 3 months into the marriage, I got pregnant. Eugene bragged about it. "Strong man's touch," he told a friend. But he never asked how I felt. I was throwing up in the bathroom while making dinner, ironing clothes with a nauseous belly, falling asleep not knowing if I was creating a life or another prison. And every time I felt the baby kick, my chest ached with fear. When the baby was born, they didn't let me hold him. Eugene's mother took him and said, This is how you cradle a man." I watched from afar, a nervous smile on my face, no tears, just a lump in my throat that stayed for years. He was my son, but he wasn't mine. He was theirs, just like I was theirs. Over the years, more children came, 4 in total. Each one left a different scar, physical, emotional, invisible. And with each birth, I drifted further away from myself. I became a care machine. I don't remember their childhoods with joy. I remember exhaustion, fear, silence. My body aged without anyone noticing. Eugene still called me my woman, but I was no one, just tiredness with legs, just a soul hiding behind an apron. I breathed out of duty, and every night before sleeping I wondered, will he die tomorrow, or will it be me? Having children didn't give me a voice. It made me even more trapped. I had to ask for permission for everything, to go out, to visit my mother, even to buy new shoes. Eugene said I was a good mother, as long as I obeyed. "Don't spoil the kids with ideas," he'd repeat. I did everything he asked, but inside, I felt dead. Motherhood broke me into too many pieces. Once, our second son had a high fever. I wanted to take him to the hospital, but Eugene said I was overreacting. Nervous moms make sick kids. I stayed up all night holding him, sweaty and groaning. The next day, he got worse. So Eugene finally decided to go, but alone. He came back saying I always made a fuss. I cried in secret in the bathroom and blamed myself for obeying. The kids grew up watching me in silence. I loved them, but I couldn't be gentle. I was too tired, slept too little, too scared to say anything off script. Eugene wanted me firm but submissive, strong but sweet, invisible but efficient, and I tried. God knows I tried. My moments of rest came while doing dishes, because there I could face away. Sometimes I'd pretend to wash plates that were already clean, just to stay alone a little longer. It was the only place I cried, quietly, head down. The soap hid the tears. I wished someone would notice, but no one did. The children called me Mom with respect, but never with affection. They didn't hug me, didn't share secrets. They were afraid of me, or felt sorry. And that broke me, because I wanted to be different. I wanted to be that mom from magazines, smiling and baking with happy kids. But I didn't even know how to smile anymore. Sometimes I imagined running away, escaping with all 4 of them, hiding somewhere Eugene could never find us. But then I remembered I had no money, no education, no one. And worse, I remembered maybe even my own children wouldn't follow me, because the love I gave never had a chance to bloom. Eugene never hit me, not once, but he never had to. He was a master at tearing me down with words, with glances, with silence. I'd hear a "that's nothing" and feel like an idiot, and "you're overreacting" and feel sick, a "stop being dramatic" and feel insane. That's how he controlled me, without raising a hand, just by erasing my voice. There were days I wanted to scream, throw everything on the floor, slam the door, and disappear. But I didn't scream. I swallowed it all. The scream would rise to my throat, shake there, and sink back into my stomach like a stone. I spent years with unexplained pain. The doctor said it was nerves, but I knew it was soul pain, and nobody treats the soul in a doctor's office. One night, I had a breakdown, woke up gasping for air. Eugene was asleep. I went to the kitchen, lay down on the cold floor, and cried like a scared child. I felt like a trapped animal. I wanted to die right there, but I didn't have the courage or the strength. I just kept crying until the sun came up. Then I got up and made coffee. That morning, Eugene looked at me and said my face looked weird. "Fix yourself up, you look sick." I obeyed, put lipstick over my trembling mouth, wore the green dress he liked, smiled in the mirror like nothing had happened. And once again, I buried myself in silence just to survive the routine. Over time, I started daydreaming. I made up stories in my head, places where I was free, where no one told me to shut up, where my kids hugged me without fear. I became a girl again, but a happy one. Those dreams were the only thing keeping me alive, but they hurt too, because they ended every time someone called my name in the real house. I was a scream no one heard, a shadow no one saw, a functional body, a name on a certificate, a signature that cooked, cleaned, and gave birth. They called me Miss Ruth, but they didn't know who Ruth was, because even I didn't know. And by then, I thought I never would. Eugene's mother was a harsh woman. She always said good women are quiet. Every time she visited, she'd criticize my hair, my cooking, the way I walked. I tried to please her, made the dishes she liked, kept the house spotless. But it was never enough. She looked at me like I was something borrowed and poorly kept. One Sunday at lunch, she said, "She looks more like a maid than a wife." Everyone laughed, even Eugene. I laughed too, out of instinct. But something in me broke for good in that moment, because I really was that. A woman who served, who did everything without being seen, who existed in the spaces between chores. She used to say Eugene saved me, that without him, I'd be nothing, that I should be grateful every single day. And for a long time, I believed her. I thought he gave me a life. It was only much later I realized he had taken one away, the one I could have had if I had a choice. She slept in the guest room when she stayed over, and even in old age, she had more authority in that house than I did. She bossed the kids around, picked out furniture, chose the grandkids' names, and I watched, powerless, disrespected, useful, but never valued. A shadow in an apron. When she got sick, I was the one who cared for her. Eugene didn't lift a finger. The kids didn't either. I bathed her, changed her sheets, took the insults until her last breath. When she died, everyone said Miss Ruth is so strong. But no one asked how I was. No one hugged me. Because to them, being strong meant staying silent. After she passed, I thought I'd finally have some space. But I was wrong. Eugene stepped into her role, and deep down, I knew there would always be someone ready to put me back in my place. Because in that world, my place was never mine. It was whatever was left. I remember exactly the night I felt a different kind of pain in my abdomen. It was like my body was screaming for help. Eugene said I was exaggerating, that it was just nerves. Still, I got dressed and went to the hospital by bus, alone, in secret. The doctor said it was serious, that I needed rest, that I should have come in sooner. I came home past midnight. Eugene was asleep. I slipped into bed quietly, trying not to wake him. The next morning, I told him the diagnosis. He didn't even look up from the newspaper, just said, "Women who go to the doctor too much end up making stuff up." Then he went back to his coffee like nothing happened. I went silent, again. Because I'd learned the price of speaking was higher than the price of silence. I spent weeks in pain, still did everything, took care of the house, the kids, the meals. I felt my body giving out, but I couldn't stop. Guilt wouldn't let me. I thought, if I rest, the house falls apart. If I complain, they'll think I'm weak. And in that world, being weak meant being disposable. So I pretended to be strong, while falling apart inside. One Sunday, Eugene saw me hunched over and said, "You're getting old too soon," like it was my fault. Like years of servitude didn't leave scars. He never cared, never held my hand, never asked if it hurt. To him, my job was to function. My body was a tool, not a person. There was a moment I thought I wouldn't make it. I sat on the bathroom floor and cried so hard I thought my heart would stop. I wanted to die right there. But I didn't, because not even that was mine to choose. I got up, washed my face, put on lipstick, and went back to the table with the same old smile. A fake smile no one seemed to notice anymore. To this day, I wonder how many women die from pain and keep on living. How many turn into ghosts inside their own bodies. I was one of them. Maybe I still am. But now, with Eugene gone, I find myself searching for a spark that still burns. Some piece of me that still wants to live. Richard was the oldest. He grew up watching his father command and his mother stay quiet. And without even noticing, he inherited the same tone of voice. When he turned 30, he started talking to me the same way Eugene used to. Short, blunt, final. One day, during a casual conversation, he said, "You were never affectionate. You were always cold with us." It cut through me. I wanted to respond. I wanted to scream. How could I be gentle when I lived in fear? But I swallowed it, like I always did. The truth is, I never knew how to be the kind of mother I wanted to be. I was afraid to even hug my children. Afraid of doing something wrong, of bothering them, of doing anything Eugene wouldn't approve of. And that cost me my connection to them. I was the quiet presence, the hand that washed their clothes, but never the arms that comforted. After that conversation, I started looking at Richard differently. I saw Eugene in every gesture, in the dry words, in the way he gave orders, and it hurt to see that I raised him like that. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stop it. The cycle repeated itself, and I was part of it. That filled me with shame and sadness. But the worst part was knowing it might be too late to change. I tried to get closer, made his favorite meal, called him for no reason, sent a message on his birthday. He answered with one-word replies, cold, polite, like he was talking to a stranger. And maybe that's exactly what I was to him. A stranger who lived in his house for decades, someone he called Mom out of habit. I cried at night, not for Eugene, for Richard, for everything that could have been but wasn't, for everything I wanted to give and couldn't, and for knowing that time can't be reclaimed. He became a man before I ever had the chance to be a woman. And now, we're both growing older, distant, cold, full of unspoken hurt. I still hope that one day I can hug him the way I should have when he was little. But I don't expect it. I've learned that expecting things from others is a setup for pain. And maybe, deep down, this distance is the price for everything I wasn't, or for everything I was forced to be. Susan is the second. As a child, she used to ask me to hold her, and I did, but carefully, always looking over my shoulder. Eugene used to say too much affection makes weak character. I'd give her a quick kiss, then pull away. Susan grew up watching, and unlike me, she learned to take control. Now she's the one who leads everything, plans, decides, manages, even when it comes to me. For her birthday, she invited me to her new house. Everything was perfect, a set table, elegant decor, soft music playing. I sat in a corner, quiet, as always. When I tried to help, she said, "No need, Mom, just sit." But the way she said it stung, like I was an outdated piece, out of place, a respected presence, but disposable. Her friends greeted me with polite small talk. "You must be so proud. Your daughter's a real fighter." I smiled. But deep down, I knew Susan is everything Eugene wanted me to be. Strong, dry-eyed, in control, and with no time to listen. Sometimes I feel like she sees me the way she sees the housekeepers, useful but invisible. During the birthday toast, she thanked everyone, spoke about her dad with emotion. He was my rock. Then she glanced at me and said, "And Mom, always there." It was quick, formal, no warmth. I smiled, clapped, but my heart sank, because even alive I felt like a portrait on the wall, part of the frame, but not the story. On the way home, I cried on the bus, quietly, with my head against the window. It hurt to realize my daughter doesn't know me, maybe never did. And now that she's grown, maybe doesn't even want to. She carries my blood, but talks to me like a distant neighbor. Susan inherited my strength, but not my softness. Maybe because she never saw it, or maybe because I never knew how to show it. And so we go on like this, two tough women who respect each other, but don't embrace. When my father died, I was already 48. Eugene said I didn't need to go to the funeral, that Henry hadn't cared about me for years. But I went, not out of grief. I went because I needed to look at the face of the man who gave me away like a transaction. I wanted to see if I felt anything, anger, relief, sadness. But what I felt was an eerie emptiness. The casket was simple. People spoke well of him, an honest man, always found a way to provide. No one knew the price he made me pay for that honesty. I stood there, dry-eyed. My mother, Doris, was crying next to me, but she wouldn't look at me. We were two strangers, dressed in black, mourning different versions of the same man. During the burial, I heard someone say I was his favorite daughter. It made me nauseous. I swallowed hard, turned my back, and walked away. Because if that was love, I'd rather have been hated. His love cost me my youth, my freedom, my future. His love locked me in a marriage with no way out, and after handing me over, he never looked back. On the way home, Eugene said I was being too quiet, that I should be more grateful for the father I had. I wanted to scream, but I took a deep breath and just said I was tired. He thought I meant the funeral. He didn't know I meant a lifetime. A weight I'd been carrying since I was 17 that had already bent my shoulders without anyone noticing. That night, I dreamed Henry was still alive, and I was a girl, running down a dirt road screaming that I didn't want to get married. He heard me. He looked at me, but turned his back. I woke up sweating, chest tight. I went out into the yard and stood there for hours, staring into the dark, in silence, as always. Something shifted that day. I didn't know what yet, but I could feel it. That funeral wasn't just the end of Henry's life. It was the beginning of my real mourning everything I never got to live. And maybe the first step toward realizing that I still could, slowly, afraid, but still, try to find myself. The house was quiet that afternoon. Eugene was napping in his armchair. I was preparing dinner when I suddenly stopped in the middle of the kitchen, unsure of what to do next. I stood there, motionless, hands covered in flour, eyes fixed on the wall. And then, out of nowhere, I started to cry, softly, without fuss, the way I always cried. But this time, the tears tasted different. It felt like every drop carried the weight of words I never spoke. I don't want this. I'm scared. Leave me alone. You're hurting me. Words that had risen to my throat so many times and that I swallowed one by one. Words that, over time, turned into stomach pain, tightness in my chest, eternal silences. I cried for them, for all of them. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the stained cloth. I remembered a time, many years ago, when I tried to tell Eugene I wanted to work outside the house. He laughed, loudly, said his wife didn't need to put herself out there, that my place was at home. I never brought up any dreams again. It was easier that way, less painful. That afternoon I felt old, but also empty, like someone who'd lived in a rented body for decades. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. There were wrinkles, yes, but what hurt wasn't time. It was not knowing who was behind it, who the woman was behind that name, Ruth. I went to the bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept old things. There were no photos of just me, only me with the kids, Me with Eugene, me holding something, doing something, never just being. I realized my story only existed in relation to others, and that broke me, because no one knew who I really was, not even me. I stood up slowly, went back to the kitchen, and finished dinner. Eugene woke up, sat down, and asked why my eyes were red. Said maybe I hadn't slept well, and I said, it was just the wind. In that moment, I knew if I didn't do something soon, I would die without ever having lived. It was pouring that night. Eugene came home angry from work, slammed the door, complained about the food, grumbled about the kids. I listened in silence, like always. But something inside me felt different. It wasn't anger. It was a suffocating kind of desperation, a need to disappear, to run and never look back. I waited for him to fall asleep, put on a coat, grabbed my purse, and walked to the gate. My feet were shaking. My heart was out of rhythm. It felt like I was 17 again, standing at the church door, wanting to run before saying I do. But now I had no excuse, just fear. Fear I couldn't do it. Fear I wouldn't know where to go. The street was dark. The wind was cold. The house lights flickered. I took 2 steps outside the gate, just 2, then stopped. I heard the rain hitting the leaves, and suddenly I thought of the kids sleeping, of the neighbors who would ask questions, of the scandal it would cause. I felt small, ashamed, ridiculous, and I turned back. I closed the gate carefully, went inside, took off the coat, put the purse away, lay down next to him, who never noticed I'd been gone. I stayed awake until morning, feeling less alive than when I got up, and more trapped than ever. Courage had knocked on my door, and I didn't let it in. That morning, I washed my face and looked at myself in the mirror with disgust. Not for staying, but for not being able to go. That moment left a mark I never forgot, because that night I came face to face with the truth. Freedom takes more than desire. It takes breaking, and I still didn't know how to break anything, but something in me had changed. The urge to run didn't disappear. It just went into hiding, waiting for another chance. Because something inside me had started to shift. It was still fragile, still scared, but new. And I began, even if very slowly, to ask myself if maybe it wasn't too late to truly exist. It was on an ordinary morning that I noticed. The new neighbor was hanging clothes on the line with a lightness I instantly envied. She was humming softly, with a scarf in her hair and barefoot on the ground. She looked about my age, but her face was easy, light, like someone who'd never learned to be ashamed of existing. That image stopped me. I stood watching her through the crack in the curtain. For days I kept peeking. She left early, came home late, always with a book in hand, no ring on her finger. One day, she caught me looking and waved. I smiled, shy, then ran to the kitchen like a girl caught doing something wrong. My heart beat fast, not from fear, but from a feeling I didn't even know how to name. It was like she reminded me there was still a woman inside me, and that shook me. When Eugene died, she came by with a cake, said her name was Marilyn, that she lived alone, and that if I needed anything, I could knock. I didn't know what to say. I took the cake and thanked her with my eyes down, but when I closed the door, I wanted to cry, because for the first time in a long time, someone offered me something, without expecting anything in return. We started talking little by little, small things, about the weather, plants, the market. And with every conversation, I felt 1 inch more alive. I realized there were words I hadn't used in decades, laughs that hadn't escaped in years, looks that weren't shaped by fear. It confused me, scared me, but also made me happy. A quiet happiness, but real. One afternoon she said, "You have beautiful eyes, you know that?" I froze. I'd never heard that before, not even when I was young. Eugene used to say I looked tired. My kids called me strong. But beautiful? Never. I walked home with those words echoing inside me. It was just a sentence, but it shook me, left me dizzy, because I no longer knew how to receive kindness. Marilyn reminded me there was more to me than I ever imagined, that there was still something left that could bloom, even after the drought, even after the pain. And for someone like me, that already felt like a revolution. The first one to notice my change was Susan. All it took was red nail polish. She came over for Sunday lunch and widened her eyes. "Since when do you wear that color?" she asked, trying to sound casual. But I saw the discomfort. I smiled, said I just wanted to try something new, and kept serving lunch. But inside I was shaking because I knew that simple gesture felt like defiance. The next week, I cut my hair, short, free, light. When she saw me, she took a deep breath. "You look different, Mom." Then came the sentence that hurt more than any insult. "You look like someone else." She didn't say it in anger. She said it with surprise, as if I had betrayed the image she built, of the invisible mother, practical, without vanity. It bothered her more than she wanted to admit. After lunch, she called me into the bedroom, said she was worried, that ever since Eugene died, I'd been acting strange. "You've never been like this." And that stung, because it was true. I never had been. Not by nature, by survival, by submission. I wanted to tell her that, but I just nodded. It was still too hard to explain. Then she brought up practical matters, said I should sell the house, that the money could go toward better insurance, that she could take care of everything. Now that Dad's gone, you need someone to guide you. That was the breaking point. I stood up, took a deep breath, and said, "Susan, I'm a widow, not helpless. And for the first time in my life, I'm the one making the decisions." The silence after my words was heavy. She looked at me like I was a stranger, but also like she was afraid. Afraid that the woman who always obeyed no longer existed. And maybe that was exactly what I wanted, to stop being predictable, to stop being the one who goes along, the one who nods. That day, for the first time, I chose myself, and it hurt. But it was a beautiful hurt, like the pain of a late birth, of a woman who, at 69, was just starting to be born. I started dragging furniture around the house, got rid of the old sofa in the living room, donated my mother-in-law's china cabinet, threw out the embroidered tablecloths I'd never liked. Every item that left felt like Eugene leaving a little too. The house was finally becoming mine. And for the first time, I realized the space we live in shapes who we are, and that living in a decorated tomb is just another kind of prison. The kitchen was the last to change. I sat there for hours on the floor with the cabinets open, found old notes, paid bills, faded photos. I threw everything out, with force, with anger, with tears, because those were the proof of a life I never lived. Objects I kept out of duty, but they had never meant anything to me. They filled the space where my real dreams should have been. Then I cleaned everything, painted the walls, hung yellow curtains, put a plant in the window, bought a brand new set of dishes, blue, the color Eugene hated. And when I looked at everything finished, I didn't cry. I smiled, a small smile, but a whole one, because that kitchen finally belonged to me. It was a reflection of the woman I was trying to discover. The kids found it strange. Richard asked if I was okay. Susan said it was too bold. I simply answered, "You never asked how I wanted things. Now you don't need to understand. Just accept." And that gave me a new kind of power, the power to stop asking for permission. I started sleeping better, with the windows open. The room smelled like lavender. The bed was the same, but I chose the sheets. I chose the lamp. I even chose the pillow. And those little choices made me feel like I belonged to myself. For the first time, I lay in a bed that truly felt like mine. I listened to music while washing dishes, read on the couch, walked around the house in slippers. And slowly, the faded woman made room for a woman who breathed more calmly, more truthfully. The Ruth that Eugene never met, and the one I didn't even know still lived inside me. It was Saturday. The city was warm, the sky clear. Marilyn had invited me to an open-air concert in the square. A string group, violins, calm music. Instinctively, I almost said no. But then I walked to the wardrobe. For the first time, I looked at each piece without thinking about Eugene's taste or my children's judgment. I chose a dark blue dress, light fabric, one I had bought years ago but never had the courage to wear. The zipper slid up easily. The hem fell just right, flowing. I looked in the mirror. My short hair, the deep lines on my face, my chest uncovered. And for the first time, I thought I looked beautiful. Not youthful, not as a wife, beautiful as a whole woman. As someone who, despite being crushed for decades, still carried a quiet light in her eyes. A light no one gave me, one that had always been mine. We got to the square before sunset. I sat beside Marilyn. She complimented my dress. I smiled without looking away. When the music began, I closed my eyes. Let the sound rush into me like wind through an open house. There was no fear, no weight, just a soft peace and a deep presence, mine. I was there, fully, with all my patched-up pieces, but mine. Around us, couples held hands, older people smiled, kids ran through the crowd. Marilyn gently rested her shoulder against mine when Claire de Lune began. And in that soft touch, I felt something rare, tenderness without duty, affection without demand, a pure human gesture. It made me close my eyes again and feel thankful for life, for the night, for still being here. We walked home slowly. She talked about the concert. I listened, feeling light. When I got home, I took off my shoes, sat in the living room, and looked at the new walls. The colors I picked, the scent of incense, the crochet table runner I bought for myself, not out of duty, but because I thought it was beautiful. And that was enough. Freedom doesn't shout, it whispers. And that night, as I lay in a bed that was truly mine, wrapped in sheets I chose, I felt freedom whispering over me like a warm blanket. It was the end of one story, but the beginning of another, one that, for the first time, would be written by me. These days I walk slowly, not from weakness, but out of respect for my own rhythm. After so many years rushing to serve, I've learned to walk for pleasure. I've learned to choose my path, to turn when I feel like it. I still stumble. I still fall. But now I decide where I step. A lot of people still call me Eugene's widow when they see me. I don't correct them. But inside, I smile. Because yes, he was part of my story. But he's not my center anymore. I am. For the first time, I am the center of my own life. And that's not selfish. It's justice. I didn't become someone else. I became myself after taking off all the masks they forced on me. The woman who cooked in silence, who went to bed afraid, who cried in the bathroom. She didn't disappear. She just got tired and chose to open the door to her own prison, even with shaking legs. These days, I like chamomile tea, books with quiet endings, simple flowers on the porch. I like Marilyn, slow conversations, mornings that begin without noise. My children still don't fully understand me, but they've started to listen. And maybe, just maybe, one day they'll truly see me. I'm 69 years old, and I've just begun to live. I still carry pain, but it doesn't define me anymore. What defines me now is this peace that's starting to settle inside. This deep knowing that no matter how much time has passed, it's never too late to be whole. Because the woman who lived in silence for over half a century now breathes out loud and no longer apologizes for existing.